Welcome to Necessary Roughness, presented to you by Stadium Rant. What in the week 14 is happening? This has been a really, really wild week, and we just came back to cover it all because why not? We have a lot to say and a lot to cover. So I'm going to start first. Of course, I've got John with me, Nick with me, and we pulled producer Chris from behind the curtain so that he can get in on the fray as well. And of course, I am your host, the one and only Meg Hall. So let's go through what we got for you. We got some hot topics, of course. We've got the winner's circle, which we like to talk about. That's the five games from this week that we thought were really interesting. We got some power rankings, and we need to talk about some folks that have been in these power rankings because probably not going to look the same. And then we've got a rapid fire pick 'em, which is our weekly picks that we do hot take style, or at least we try to. So, all right, let's start with these hot topics. One of the things that I put on the list for the show today was to talk about these wild plays. And Chris, I don't know if you have this one or not, but it's a Lions fake punt. That's the one that I wanted to get. And I'm sorry, John, to bring this up for you. I'm so sorry. My condolences.
I got it. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's not it. Here we go.
All right. So was this on a fourth down? Yeah, 4th and 7, and this went for 42 yards. Oh my word. I'm so sorry, John. I'm so sorry.
Right, and what are we doing too? Like they're on their own 26. The stone's on Dan Campbell. I mean, what and why? I don't know. I don't have a ton of eloquent analysis on that play. That one threw me for a loop, man.
I mean, Dan Campbell is quite an interesting figure, but we know that the Lions believe in him. And to be honest with you, this probably wasn't the wildest play of the game, oddly enough. I think there was another conversion to, maybe it was a 4th down or a 3rd down play. They got a 1st down out of it, and they threw to Penei Sewell and got a 1st down to, I think, effectively ice the game.
Yeah, they even sent Sewell in motion, and then, he caught, he high pointed the ball and everything. And then even as he was going down, he was stumbling, just dove down real quick. And then I forgot who it was that was trying to take the ball away from him. He just slapped him across the helmet. Like, get out of here, little boy.
The best slot receiver in the NFL. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he said the best slot receiver in the NFL.
I mean, he ran a route. He was in motion.
To be fair, apparently Dan Campbell didn't even know that play was happening. If you watched the Pat McAfee show earlier today. So apparently Dan says, yeah, I was very enthralled and I was watching the wave go on in the stadium or whatever. So he was like locked in on that because he thought it was so cool. And he says that the offensive coordinator said something. He's like, hey, Dan, do you want to run? And then it was like, and he didn't hear the rest. And he was like, oh, yeah, that's fine. And so all of a sudden he looks up and Penei is catching the ball for a 1st down. And he's like, what in the world just happened? Like, he had no idea that play was even happening. He's like, hey, it worked. He's like, all I told him was like, hey, we'd practice this beforehand, which that's crazy to me that you practice a play like that. But apparently they practiced that play. He told him like, hey, if you get the ball, go down inbounds. And that's what happened. So sorry to bring up your pain, John. We're going to talk more about it.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk more about it and later on when we talk in the winner's circle. All right, so that play was crazy. Then there was another one that I thought was probably even wilder. Tyreek Hill has a fumble return for a touchdown. Offensive lineman in there, I think, that inadvertently bats the ball, and that is what pushed it out of the pile, which I thought was crazy to me. Like, again, I've never seen something like that where nobody gets the ball. This little hand comes out and is like whoop, and it's just enough to push the ball out. And of course, who else but Tyreek Hill is there to run it back? Because why not? Why not? Nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense this week. And these plays were just like, what's happening? I don't know. Do you know?
Yeah. Also, there's such horse shit because they scored 10 points all game. And this ridiculous thing Tyreek does makes the score look a lot better. But Tua was 3 of 35 at one point. He was I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Why is Tyreek picking up the ball? And I'm like, of course he's going to go score. So as a Bills fan, I was kind of frustrated because, of course, the ball just bounces to the fastest guy on the field. But, You know,
Mhm.
Tua
I mean,
wasn't able to get the
why not? Why not? Why not? At this point, I don't know if I was more shocked at the fact that it was Tyreek Hill, but just the fact that it was a touchdown that was run back, that like the whistle wasn't blown on, like this one counted. And Trevor says Tyreek has to have the most different ways of scoring a touchdown of all time. I might agree. I might agree. I literally might agree.
Tua was
I've never seen that.
6 for 22 at one point there. Yeah, so McDaniel must have just went to the back pages of the playbook or something. They had to figure something out. Waddle can scoot too, but like it seemed almost drawn up, given that it went right to Tyreek Hill, the guy who.
I mean, it was the old Tyreek Hill fumble touchdown. They're like, pull that off the back page. Yeah, that's what we want right there.
Exactly. Just in the Wednesday install.
Yeah, of course. All right, and so we had one last wild play. I don't know if you have this one, Chris. It's the Davante Adams one-hander. Really insane to me. And I really, I don't know if you guys saw me tweeting during this game, but I literally tweeted the Adrian Bronner, I'm out here getting cooked meme, because that's all I can think of. I'm like, Jalen Ramsey, I miss Jalen Ramsey from his Jaguars days. He's not looked the same, I felt like, in a while. And Davante Adams was a perfect person to just destroy his whole world. Completely fine with it.
If DK Metcalf is Jalen Ramsey's father, then Davante Adams is his stepfather. Just how it goes.
Okay.
You know what the problem with that was too? Is Davante Adams is still that guy. And
of course,
and he shows it every time he's given the opportunity. But in his last 3 seasons with Aaron Rodgers, he had 1 game with less than 4 receptions. He's had 4 such games for the Raiders this year. And that just doesn't make any sense. They're starting to kind of come around to, let's feed the horses. Jacobs is getting an insane amount of touches, and they're starting to force feed Davante a little bit, but it's still not consistent enough. It doesn't make sense to give up the capital, bring him over. Josh McDaniels, draw it up, bring him to his Fresno State quarterback, and then he's not really getting the targets. Waller's been injured. I don't know where else it's going to go. But so that's been super disappointing. But you see a showing like that, and it's like, yeah, Davante's still that guy. He might not have the production of Jefferson Hill this year, but he's right there.
I mean, you still put him in the top. If you're going to say top 10 receivers in the league, I'm being very generous with top 10. I would say he's easily top 5, but top 10 receivers in the league, he's easily in the conversation just for pure talent alone, regardless of production or whatever else. But I would say that plays like that are why the Raiders went out and got Davante Adams. They were expecting to get more out of that, but I think injuries have played a large part in why we haven't seen as much out of that offense as we thought. So maybe, if they take the offseason, they go get healthy, maybe fire one Josh McDaniel, hey, that's just my personal opinion. But, they could probably put together what they were hoping to in the offseason. So, all right. So let's move on. Let's talk about this one. I wanted to add this one because I thought it was very quickly mentioned over the weekend, but Travis Kelce is the fastest tight end to reach 10,000 receiving yards. And I think there's only 4 other folks that have done this with him, which I know that we talk about tight ends falling off or players falling off or whatever else, but at 30 plus years old, Kelce is kind of defying what it means to be in the prime of your career. The guy is still a monster. And I would say that he's doing this in spite. I mean, it helps to have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, but he's doing this in spite of Patrick Mahomes. He just continues to be the stuff of nightmares. And, he's breaking rule books or breaking record books along the way. And in my opinion, I guess this begs the question. I guess I'll throw it out to you, Nick, because I asked this question earlier in the season. I thought it was very interesting for people to give their answers. But if you had to pick, Prime Gonzalez versus Prime Kelce, who are you going to pick in that regard?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, 2 Hall of Famers, right? 2 legends. I I don't know about recency bias and all that, because, obviously I would like to take Kelce just because I've seen him dominate in my era. But, it's a really tough one. I think that I'm going to take Kelce. You know why? Because I don't think that Gonzalez is the greatest tight end of all time. I think it's Gronk. But I do think that Kelce has the opportunity to become the greatest tight end of all time. And Gonzalez obviously doesn't. So that's the only reason I'll take Kelce.
That's fair. That's fair. John, what about you? What would you say?
I would go Tony G by a hair. And I think it's kind of a matter of stylistic preference. He's just and Kelce can do it all as well. Don't get me wrong. But Tony was just a little bit more of that traditional inline tight end, red zone threat, big mitts on him, contested catch winner kind of guy. And Kelce a little bit more versatile, maybe probably a little bit quicker, but I just think Gonzalez was the more sure-handed of the two, and that to me a lot of times is the most important trait for a tight end to have, is that big guy. You want your big target to be able to win those jump balls. So I'd go Gonzalez by just a hair.
Yeah, and I said the same, but I nearly set my mentions like on fire, ablaze, by arguing that I think it was a lot of recency bias over, Travis Kelce, which I get it. I do. But I felt you don't have Travis Kelce without a Tony Gonzalez happening first, right? Those are the types of the Tony Gonzalez, the Shannon Sharps, the Dallas Clarks of the world. Like, those are the Jason Wittens of the world. Like, those are the types of folks that, like, set the standard for a tight end like Travis Kelce. So.
Mm-hmm. And Tony was about Kelce's age now when he started his Falcons career, if I'm not mistaken. So, Kelce's still got a ways to go. Tony had a really, really long career, and that longevity, something to be said for that as well. But Kelce's still got some in the tank, obviously. So
one thing I'll say, because, like, all right, so, and maybe it is a little bit of recency bias, but for me, I picked Kelce. Like, I would pick Kelce with this. And I mean, everybody has their preference on what they want out of their tight end, their receiver, their quarterback, whatever. But with Kelce, the ability to still play like a tight end, but then when you catch the ball to move like a wide receiver is, to me, what separates him. And yeah, even with Tony G at 33, he went to Atlanta, but that's when we started seeing his decline. We don't see a decline in Travis Kelce right now at his age.
Right.
So, I mean, he still has a lot more football to play, but Tony G, it took him maybe like 16 years to reach 15,000 yards, where Travis Kelce, he could probably do that within the next 5 years and amass the 15,000 yard mark. And once again, it does help to have like a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, but everybody thought Travis Kelce was going to fall off because Tyreek Hill was gone. So you took away the speed guy, and yet Travis Kelce is still able to go out there and produce at a high level. He has 1,000 yards this year with 12 touchdowns. So he's still able to produce at that high level at the age of 33, where, like, we saw Gonzalez, he got to Atlanta, 33 years old. I think the first year he had 800 something yards, and then after that, the yards just kept going down. So I don't know. To me, it's hard not to put Kelce up there, but I mean, I can understand why Tony G still gets the nod over Kelce at this point in his career.
Yeah, and just like going back off of like what CeeLo just said, like Travis Kelce, though, I think the reason that Mahomes in the offense has not had much of a dip at all is because Kelce's ability to be like a receiver. I think that if he was more like a sure-handed tight end like Jason Witten, I think that Mahomes would have more, difficulty moving the ball down the field, in chunk plays, because you got these 12 to 13-yard catches or a 3rd and 6. All right, I got my tight end, I got my safety blanket. But the fact that he can go to Kelce for 8 yards, but then he turns it up and makes it 20, I think that it's kind of a preference of like, we're now in 2022, and back then when Tony G was in his era of like the early 2000s, and I think that like, there are guys like Gronk and Witten and Tony G, but there are like Kelce's kind of changed the landscape of tight ends, because I think that teams are looking for guys like Travis, like they looked for Hawkinson in Detroit, and they're looking for guys that can be like the receiving type more. And I think like the days of blocking tight ends are kind of out the window at this point. And I think Kelce's kind of changed the landscape.
You guys are making compelling arguments. I love it. I'm here for it. All right, so this one is actually a special request from you guys. So earlier this week, I got a message that says, "Can we talk about these two quarterbacks because I need to get some things off my chest, and I don't really like, all the talk being made about a certain one of these quarterbacks." So, Chris, if you want to bring up the graphic, yes, we have the Mortal Kombat type style, Tua versus Herbert. So the question is, and I'm throwing it out here because I think this is maybe where the conversation was going. I feel like the question was, who is better? I feel like that's where it was. Who is better? So, John, I'm gonna throw it out to you first. Who do you feel like is better in this situation, and maybe 2 reasons why?
All right. So it's Herbert. Can we stop it, people? whoever you people are, whoever's drumming up this crap, because the thing is people don't look at, when they think who's better, they think, who am I seeing do better things to me? Like, how am I processing how they're doing this year? And it's all very, very recent. And it is sometimes week to week. And it's week 14, and I've been seeing it since the preseason, I think, is when might have been the first time Emmanuel Acho started doing all this. But it's Herbert. And people don't look at this through the lens of, if all things were equal, who would I want to start my team with, or who would I want to be my quarterback? In a neutral setting, I suppose, if they all had the same weapons, same offensive line, same play caller, yada, yada, same defense, what have you. But when you look at the difference between Tua and Herbert, the difference in arm talent is stark. That's a lot of quarterbacking. It's stark. And the reason being, listen, if Justin Herbert was in the Miami offense right now with McDaniel, just anytime he sees MFO middle field open, he's like, okay, 4 verts, hit the crosser. Herbert would be shredding Tua's numbers that everybody hangs their hats on. Herbert would be operating the pocket at a much higher level. He would be able to do more with those weapons. He would much more seldom underthrow Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle when they're 10 yards past the cornerback. And those are just very, very simple reasons. I don't even have to get too in depth. But another reason too is his processing is just as good. It's just as good. He just doesn't have the same options and the concepts on his offense. His processing is so immaculate that his ADOT is the lowest in the league because of how terrible his weapons are. His processing is so immaculate. He's like, oh, I'm not going to throw to this terrible matchup. I'm not going to throw to this terrible matchup. This guy has no separation check down. He's a robot. Tua's like, oh, that guy's open. That guy's opener, though. And those are his weaknesses.
I feel like you felt a little passionate about this, and Nick was so disgusted he didn't even look up half the time while you were talking.
It shouldn't be a discussion. Tua's good, and he's fine. But it's not. We don't have to take that leap. Everybody wants to take that leap. It doesn't make any sense. It's like the Hurts versus Mahomes MVP. What does MVP mean? Yeah. Stop it. Put Mahomes on the Eagles. They're 12-0. You know what? It is okay. I'm not going to do other quarterback stuff, but it's Herbert, guys. Come on. Does anyone think different here?
I feel like Nick has some thoughts. Nick, what do you think?
Okay. At Baltimore, at the Lions, at the Chicago Bears, home against the Browns, home against the Texans. That's 6 games. That is the only 6 games that I've ever seen Tua Tagovailoa have an above-average performance. Justin Herbert has had at least 15 to 20 elite performances in his career with not even close to the amount of weapons that Tua's had. He's never had a completion percentage of 35, and he's never had a passing rating, I think, under 40. So I think Justin Herbert, as to John's great points, he makes decisions faster, and I think that we need to evaluate quarterbacks when they don't have everything perfectly in line for them. And Justin Herbert has not always had everything perfectly in line for him, and he's still been able to make elite, sensational plays down the field to guys like Joshua Palmer, who the only reason we know who his name is because it's Justin Herbert. The only reason we knew guys with Tom Brady is because Tom Brady's Tom Brady, and he made these guys who they are. Tyreek Hill was already Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle is already a speedster that knows how to, burn any cornerback. Mike Gesicki was already a really good tight end. So I think that these guys that he has around him right now, these guys have helped him, shape his career in the fact that in the sense that he's been able to evolve because of these incredible guys getting open all the time. And Herbert's, while he's had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, there's been so many injuries to these guys, and he's still been able to make plays. So I just think it's Herbert by a landslide. And obviously, unless we see Tua do it for multiple seasons, I know Herbert can do it for multiple seasons because I've seen it already. So that's why I'm going to take Justin.
Oh,
Did
okay.
anyone know DeAndre Carter's been in the NFL for 4 seasons?
Yeah.
Who?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
He's got 600-700 yards this year. Herbert's been hitting them with highlight after highlight. And he's been in the NFL for 4 years. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Oh, he's just on the field getting dotted by Justin Herbert. So we found out who he was.
So it seems like we got comments saying Herbert. Chris, it seems like you're on the Herbert train as well.
Yeah, I've been on the Herbert train ever since he was at Oregon. Coming out of Oregon, everybody was saying, "Oh, he's not a leader. He's not this. He's not that. Whatever." He got into the league and he just set the league on fire. I mean, his first year, he got thrown into he got thrown literally into the game because he wasn't supposed to start. Just so happens, Tyrod Taylor long got punctured that day. Hey, Herbert, you're starting. Goes in, does what he does. And I mean, it's just been history ever since. I mean, and to all of their points, he has the better arm. There's a throw he made last year against Oakland or against Las Vegas when they were fighting for the playoffs. Actually, there was 2 throws in that game. There was one where he was on the left hash and he hit, I think it was either Palmer or whichever one of those no-name receivers that he has out there. On the sideline, on the right sideline. He's on the left hash. He throws the ball to the right sideline, like 30 yards down the field, like on the money. So only where your receiver can get it. Like, I mean, it's Herbert. Then in the one that he threw to Mike Williams, threading the needle between like 3 defenders. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a 4th down. It was not on the end zone. It was a 4th down. Either in overtime or the last drive of regulation, I believe. And that was the drive where he did hit Mike Williams in the back of the end zone. But this one was just like a 4th down conversion. He throws it maybe like 10, 15 yards downfield, but he threads it between 3 DBs. And it's like, how do you get that ball hit there where only your receiver can get it? And that's it. And it's across the middle of the field. So like you throw it there to where only your receiver can get it, and it's with pinpoint accuracy. Tua's good. Like I don't want to take anything away from Tua, but Tua has to do this on a consistent level or a consistent basis to say, okay, you're better than Justin Herbert. And even within just this season, he hasn't been consistent. Herbert has been very consistent, even with Keenan Allen out and Mike Williams out at the same time, playing with dudes like Jordan Palmer. And I think Guyton is still on the team or whoever he has out there with no legitimate down the field threat. And Tua has 2 down the field threats. Justin Herbert has none. Mike Williams makes contested catches. Keenan Allen, he's a great route runner, so he's everything underneath. but he doesn't have a legit speedster, a guy that he can just get the ball to downfield. Like, he doesn't have a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle, and Justin Herbert still makes it do what it do.
So there's a comment. Yes, there you go. I just saw something like flash. 10 fourth quarter comebacks for Herbert versus 4 for Tua. So I think this also solidifies my thoughts, and I would take Justin Herbert over Tua for the simple fact of I need to see Tua do it on a more consistent basis. I think I had said earlier when we were just chit-chatting before the show that I want to see what another season with Mike McDaniels and Tua together would do for Tua. I feel like I've been hearing Dolphins fans chatter all off season. They're so excited about Tua. He's going to change the narrative. He's going to, he's going to take this team places. And by and large, the Dolphins look like a much better franchise and team this season with the help of Mike McDaniels at the helms. But I want to see them continually put this up. My concern, I think, Chris and I, we chatted about this earlier today. Bama quarterbacks in the league have just not been what they were when they were in college. Highly underwhelming in several spaces. But folks like Mac Jones and Tua are trying to change that narrative now where, like, hey, we can be productive in the league. So I would like to see him continue. So I'll leave it there because we'll probably take up the rest of the show arguing about, Herbert over Tua. And I would probably have to give John like 40 minutes by himself. All right. So last thing that we want to talk about is Kyler Murray. So unfortunately, in the game that happened against the Patriots last night, Kyler is injured on a play. It's a non-contact play, which now reports confirmed today that he tore his ACL. So this is a really tough blow for Arizona for a number of reasons, I think. Excuse me. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. Yeah, Ian Rappaport tweeted that out earlier today, as well as a number of other insiders. But I thought it was it's a rough ending for this season in general. Like, the Cardinals had such high hopes. You give Kyler this big contract. There was much to do about that contract and how it went down. Him, essentially kind of strong-arming the team. They have this homework clause in it. Then they get, bullied by social media to take the clause out. Clause comes out or whatever else. Okay, great. This is our guy. And this season is very, very underwhelming by and large a lot. You don't start the season with Nuke Hopkins. Like, it's just underwhelming for a number of reasons. And now, in my mind, all I can think about is, how is this going to affect Kyler Murray down the stretch? We've seen players come back from ACL injuries. Like, I get it. But for Kyler Murray, I'm wondering, like, what his journey will be. And maybe that is largely unknown. But, Chris, I want to get your thoughts on this. How do you think this contract looks now in light of Kyler Murray being injured now? And will this influence any other contracts that come down the pipeline, or we're expecting down the pipeline? Like, for example, the guy that you've been, subliminally pushing, Lamar Jackson. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this.
To be honest, I never thought the contract looked good for Kyler Murray anyway, because I didn't think he deserved the money that he got. Sorry about that. I didn't think he deserved the money that he got, if I'm being honest. But now that, with the injury and everything, prayers up for him. Hopefully he comes back, speedy recovery and everything, and he comes back well. But I don't know, man. Arizona, at this point in time, like, to me, it's time to just start over. You keep Kyler for sure. Like, you keep Kyler, build around him, but you got to get rid of the front office and get rid of the head coach and go from there. But I don't think even though with the injury, it is what it is. It's the game of football. Injuries happen. Like, that's forever going to be a part of football. Until maybe they get rid of turf, because that was a non-contact injury, and that's just turf, man. Like, that's what happens. So they know what they're doing when they give these contracts. You have injury guarantees, you have different things like that. So it is what it is, in my opinion. They're just gonna have to eat the money for next year and hope Kyler Murray comes back sometime, around November or something next year. And they'll have to figure out what quarterback going forward. But that's what I think about it.
Yeah, that's completely fair. All right. I did want to bring that up. And yes, definitely prayers up to Kyler Murray. That was a tough injury to see. And seeing him getting carted off the field, towel over his head, and lots of players on the team, like, just kind of tapping him, letting him know it's going to be okay. It was rough. But I did think in the back of my mind, just from an analysis standpoint, like, what does this mean going forward, not only for him, but for that contract they put together. So definitely thought it was worth the conversation, and in light of other injuries that we had seen with your Lamar Jackson that agenda that you've been pushing for quite a while.
I still think Lamar's going to get his money, but it's just going to be elsewhere.
Ooh. Now, don't start now. This is definitely for, we got to keep it on the topics on topic here. So I'll leave you for 40 minutes, and you'll probably talk about Lamar to Indy.
Atlanta.
It might be Atlanta.
What? Okay. What?
Arthur
Okay.
Smith?
So side note, why take Ritter? Why take Ritter if you're gonna go get another quarterback?
Because maybe they didn't know Lamar was
understand.
come available.
He's also just Marcus Mariota, so just get rid of 2 Marcus Mariotas and bring him in.
Okay, fair enough.
Give Baltimore Ritter and your first round pick.
Get rid of him.
And then
I'm gonna leave that right there, because we're gonna probably subliminally bring all the Ravens fans into this chat, and I just don't want to get. I feel like anytime you bring up Lamar Jackson's name, like Ravens fans just appear out of nowhere. So I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it there. All right, let's get to the winner's circle, because now we got some really good games that we want to get through. Plus, we still have to get through the power rankings and rapid fire as well. So let's start with the winner's circle. Rams Raiders. So I have a little something I want to get off my chest about this Rams Raiders game. So first things being first, if you didn't watch the game, you didn't miss a whole lot until the last, I would say, minute and 14 seconds. I'm not even going to lie. I went to sleep. I was headed to bed. As you could probably hear, my voice is a little raspy. My allergies are bothering me. I was like, all right, I'm going to bed. I promise you, I was in the throes of the beginning of parts of my sleep when I hear my husband screaming at the top of his lungs from downstairs. And I know something is happening. And I flip on my phone, I throw on the cable on my phone, on the little app I have, just in time to see Baker Mayfield throw an improbable touchdown to win this game. And he went 98 yards to do it. What makes this even crazier is that Baker Mayfield had been with this team for 36 hours at this point. He probably had 2 hours of practice before now. So I want to hear from you guys. Nick, let's start with you. What were your thoughts watching Baker Mayfield at the start of this game-winning drive? Because I'll be honest, I went back and watched it. I was like, there's no way he went 98 yards. Something must have happened. Somebody must have had a really big, long run. But that wasn't the case. What did you see on that game-winning drive?
Yeah, I mean, when it was 16-10, I was obviously thinking that, that the Tom Brady thing just happened. The last football game I watched, the same thing happened. So I was like, okay, before that Monday night when Tom Brady did that, I wasn't thinking that was possible. But now I'm like, hey, listen, this could happen. So he goes to some of these no-name receivers, and he's finding guys, and I'm like, okay, he's getting some things done. But the whole time in my mind, I'm like, it's not gonna, he might get down to the 30, and then they're gonna run out of time, or he'll throw a pick, or something's gonna happen. And I was just so surprised when he I think Al Michaels was the most surprised I've ever heard him in my entire life when he threw this touchdown pass. I was like, Al Michaels is excited, I'm excited. I mean, this was incredible. I think everybody's rooting for Baker in that moment. And he played really well. I mean, we know that he's talented, and we know that he can make some plays, and I think he was really happy to get out of Carolina, because don't think it was a good situation for him. And he said to himself in that moment, he said, I'm going to make this count. I'm in LA. I'm a sunshine type of guy. I was in Oklahoma. I'm a #1 pick. And I think this is a good place for him. It sucks that Matt Stafford's on the same roster, but I think that he makes plays when people don't expect him to. And so when it happened, I was surprised. But when I thought about it later, I was like, I'm really not that surprised, because that's what he does, kind of.
Yeah, John, I want to ask you: do you think, with Nick's mention of Matt Stafford being on this roster, do you think Baker is accepting of his backup role now? Because it seems like he's done a lot of back and forth. Obviously we know that Matt Stafford will go. Our hope is that he comes back healthy and he still remains the starting quarterback here. what does that mean for Baker? Is he now in the backup role part of his career?
Yeah, I think he kind of got to where he just wants to play football. And I think he will sort of accept that and bide his time. Probably came down a peg or two. But I think that might have been good for him. He looked really good. That locker room shot with him and the team after the game was really cool. So no, I mean, I'm all about it. I think he may have kind of turned a corner with his mindset a little bit. So I could see him kind of being more accepting of a backup role, but also maybe getting one of those like bottom 4 starter jobs, kind of where Wentz is now.
Oh. Okay.
People keep getting them.
Being honest, yeah.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this: there's a whole lot of quarterback needy teams right now, and I think a lot will happen in the offseason. I will say I thought it was very interesting. I read a little tidbit that Baker actually booked his flight before he even knew that he was going to be a Ram. He had a feeling that it was going to happen, but he was so confident in the fact that he already booked his flight. So it's like he knew and he felt comfortable enough going here. But I would say that on that drive, what I saw was, I mean, he looked like he had been there the whole time. He's very decisive with the football. He threw some great throws to Van Jefferson out there. I mean, out to the hash. I mean, on a rope. Those are the types of throws that, like I was mentioning earlier before we got on the show and we were chit-chatting, like, those are the things that you're like, whoa, like that's what you initially saw at a Baker Mayfield. But I think he's been so inconsistent that you just don't know what you're going to get from week to week. But I would say that he's got another opportunity coming up this week. I saw earlier today, he was named the starter for this upcoming game. So we will see what Baker Mayfield does. But I thought it was very interesting. We started this week 14 off with a bang because that wasn't the only wild game that we saw this week. This one is particular probably for Chris, you and I, as fans of the AFC South. This Cowboys-Texans game was the wildest thing I've seen in I don't know how long. I'm going to say this, and I tweeted this too because it's relevant for this game. But of course, no one's going to remember that at some point, the Colts and Cowboys were almost tied in their game. It was 21-19 going at the start of the fourth quarter. Cowboys didn't score a single point in the third quarter, right? They go in the fourth quarter, and all their points were points off of turnovers. They technically didn't score any offensive touchdowns that they generated themselves. So it did not totally shock me that the Houston Texans took them to task for much of that game. But I felt like the Texans, did what they do where they, obviously the game just unraveled towards the end because you expect good teams to come back. But are the Cowboys in trouble, Chris? Like, I want to know, are they in trouble?
So I don't think the Texans unraveled. I think they did it on purpose. Because I don't know who in their right mind would put Rex Burkhead in on 3rd and goal and run him when you have Dameon Pierce on the sideline. And then run some type of crazy option play on 4th down on the goal line. I don't know who in their right mind does that, but I would like to think that maybe, they just meant to do that. They wanted to lose. I don't think the Cowboys are in trouble. I think they were looking past the Texans. And also the Texans normally play them very well. And normally the Texans beat them as well. So that's another thing. So now, they have Jacksonville this week, and Jacksonville is one of those teams that they're looking to play spoiler. Not only are they looking to play spoiler, but Jacksonville has a legitimate shot at potentially making the playoffs. So Jackson and Trevor Lawrence, I don't know what got into him, but he's looking like that number 1 pick that that most people thought that he was going to be. So Trevor Lawrence it looks like he's putting it together. And I mean, because these last few games, Trevor Lawrence against the Ravens, and then this past week against the Titans, he's just looked good. Like he's been balling.
Yeah.
And so, if that's the case, Dallas can't look past Jacksonville because they have the Eagles the following week. I think on Christmas I think it was on Christmas or either Christmas Eve, one of those. But they have the Eagles, so you don't want to look past Jacksonville because you play the Eagles because Jacksonville, you're going to Jacksonville, and we know teams don't usually have a lot of luck playing in Jacksonville when they have to travel and stuff, especially in day games. So Dallas, they're not in trouble, but they gotta be on their P's and Q's. They can't look past these teams just because they have a divisional game against a 12-1 team, that week. So they gotta be on their stuff.
Yeah, I would say that the interesting tidbit here is that the Cowboys are actually 0-1 against Jacksonville in Jacksonville. Their lone win coming against them was actually in the London game they played. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence, so let's transition a little bit to this Jaguars-Titans game. I think the Titans are absolutely in trouble. And shameless plug, I did write an article about them being frauds just not that long ago. Head over to stadiumrant.com/NFL and you'll see that. But I thought it was very interesting that is the word I saw come up very, very often this past week about the Titans being frauds. And I said this when they were playing the Eagles, is that they absolutely look like frauds for what they put on that team. This all speaks very loudly, I think, of the roster that John Robinson had put together. And also they're dealing with some injuries as well. But I would say now the Titans are in trouble because they've lost 3 in a row. They're not looking as, they don't, as I would say, as their prowess not looking as strong as it was just a couple of weeks ago when we're like, oh, they're going to win the AFC South. That was a foregone conclusion. Now it's looking like Jacksonville could challenge them potentially for the AFC South. They don't get their act together. So, Nick, I want to transition to you and ask you this question. Obviously, the Jags, we know that now the Jags won this game, but what did you see out of Trevor Lawrence that let you know, like, hey, he has arrived? Because that's another word I saw. Trevor Lawrence has arrived after this game.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor was awesome. 4 touchdowns, 368 through the air, 30 or 42. He's played amazing. And, he's had great games before this, but maybe not to this, to this level. He hasn't played on this level. That game that they were able to beat Baltimore with in that last drive kind of gave you a sense of what he could do in close game situations against a good defense. And we said, oh, all right, Trevor, we kind of see you now. Like, we were kind of not expecting that. And now, you're in a situation where he's really I think he's starting to pick up the pieces of the other guys, somebody like Evan Engram, all of a sudden he can catch the ball, apparently. Couldn't do that for the Giants, but now he's doing that. 11 catches, 162, 2 touchdowns. Who is this guy? That's who the Giants wanted all along. So, and I'm going to give you guys a really, really hot take right now. I think that the winner of this football team, the winner of this football game is going to win the AFC South.
Oh boy. Okay.
So I will say this too. I'm a Colts fan, right? But I hope the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Commanders make the playoffs. So before the season started back in July, I made a bet that the Minnesota Vikings will have a winning record. The Jacksonville Jaguars, it's like just one parlay. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Commanders will make the playoffs. It was like plus 8,000 or something like that. I don't remember the correct odds or whatever, but all I know is $5 will win me 500. So at this point, I am cheering for the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Commanders to make the playoffs, and both of them have a chance. So, the Vikings already have a winning record, so there's that. So,
I will say this. I think for me, part of me almost hopes the Jags win the AFC South just because I felt like Titans fans have been so sure of themselves for a very, very long time, and rightfully so. They've now come alive in the last couple of seasons, back-to-back AFC South titles. John Robinson, or so we thought, had this roster like humming, but a lot has come off the rails in the last several weeks, and Amy Adams Strunk, their owner, was like, absolutely not, I've had enough, and fires John Robinson. She said something very, very interesting to me that she said, why delay this decision when I already knew I was going to make it? So she just made it like that, which tells me that, hey, the expectations are higher for this organization and we want to go further. But it also tells me that Titans are not quite there yet. Remember that comment that we got from a fan who shall remain nameless about the Colts being the little brother to the Titans and things like that?
Yeah, I remember
we got that
very well.
One of our spaces, and I think both you and I were like, little, like what? You just got here. And that came to mind when I was writing my article. Like, you just got here and now we're already questioning you. So that just tells me like, hey, the Titans are going to be good. I'm not worried about them. But I think for, chaos purposes, my inner fan is like, yes, please, Jaguars, win the division. All right.
All I'm saying is, though, the schedule, they could win the division at 8-9, okay? Because they got the Jets, they got the Texans, and then they got the rematch with the Titans in Week 18. Yes, they have the Cowboys this week. I do think they lose that game. But Jets, Texans, Titans, 8-9, that's 3-1. You'd win the division. So it's not bad.
It's definitely possible at this point.
Yeah.
And the way the Titans have been playing, who knows what you're going to get from week to week. So I'll leave it at that. All right, so Chris made mention of the Vikings, this Lions-Vikings game, and unfortunately, I know John had to hop off because he's got some commitments. But this was a game I think John would probably rather forget. He would really want to forget. This Lions team, I think I remember John saying last week that he was miffed at the fact that the Lions were favorites in this game. And I remember I probably should have found the clip, but I remember he saying, oh, they're not going to win. Vegas is going to lose this week, that sort of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I did not think the Lions would pull this off, but they came in very sure of themselves. And they played like it too. So, Chris, I want to ask you, what went wrong for the Vikings? Like, where did they unravel in this game?
So I didn't really get to watch the game. I did pick the Lions to win this game, though. The Lions have been playing very well lately. And, this is another team that's trying to either play spoiler or make a playoff push because the Lions are still in the playoff race. So they would have to win out, of course, or maybe at least lose one game down the stretch. But they're making a playoff push. They could finish the season at, I think, either 10-7 or 9-8, depending on how everything goes for them. And their schedule is very favorable. They got, I think, the Bears. I forget who else they played down the stretch, but I know for sure they play the Bears. I think Green Bay again or something like that. So they have a chance, and I think they're just on the right track. I don't think necessarily the Vikings unraveled. I think the Lions are showing you what some of us expected going into this season. I thought they drafted very well. They have pieces on that team. They have receivers, like they have really good receivers on that team. And I've always thought like that team would go as far as Jared Goff would take them. And then Jared Goff has been playing well. I mean, you can't take anything away from him. He's been playing well. And the defense is what seems like has been coming alive lately. Ever since they fired their defensive coordinator, they've kind of been just getting on the right track. And I think that's what we're seeing from the Lions right now. And so if they don't make the playoffs this year, I definitely think they could make it next year, depending on how the draft goes. And to think that they have the Rams pick in this year's draft because of the Matthew Stafford trade. So they could make the playoffs this year and still have a top 5 pick. And that's even crazier because then at that point, if you believe in Jared Goff, you don't even have to take a quarterback. You can go get another defensive player. They have a legit offensive line. You don't have to build that. Don't have to build with the receivers. Or you could get a running back. Bijan Robinson, I don't know if you take him that high because running back shouldn't go that high. But I just think, like I said, I just think this is what a lot of people expected from the Lions, and I think it's finally coming to fruition where they're putting it together. They're finally putting the pieces together, and it's showing out there on the football field.
Yeah, I would agree. At one point, the Lions had the number 1 scoring offense in the league, and I would probably say they're still likely in that realm as well. They've been putting up some really high-scoring games. I think their issue has been finishing those games, and certainly for a young team, that's something that they'll look to correct down the stretch. But I think Dan Campbell has them. I said it earlier in the season that Dan Campbell has them on the right path. They are buying into whatever Dan Campbell is selling, and I would love to see them come back next season. Let's see what they put together. And hello, Jared Goff. Finally, welcome to the party. I think that I think I mentioned that as well, that I was like out on Jared Goff because I'm like, I don't think he's the guy. He's not looking like it. But to your point, Chris, he's been playing very good football, and now the team is rallying around him. So it's good to see. All right, last game, and then we'll hop into a very quick power ranking update, and then of course our rapid fire. So last game was this Bucs-Niners game. So I really wish we had John for this, but so we could get all of his dad jokes. But this is a Purdy party. Brock Purdy, Mr. Relevant, we'd like to call him now, Absolutely wild game from start to finish. I felt like I don't think I've ever seen the Bucks since Tom Brady joined look this decimated in a game, let alone this season has been very, very wild. Nick, I want to ask you, what did you think of Brock Purdy in this game? Like, why is he playing such great football?
I mean, you got to look at the confidence this kid has. I mean, it's really incredible for somebody that, I don't think that if you're Mr. Irrelevant, I don't think that you're going to think, first of all, that means you're going to a good team because you're drafted so low. And I don't think that you have any, anticipation of playing in your first season. But the confidence that he has to just slot in and play for a Super Bowl contender is just incredible. There's so many guys that would come in and not, even though they have McCaffrey and they've got Kittle and Ayuk and Samuel and all these guys, some guys don't have that type of confidence that they can just come in and learn the playbook. Playbooks are hard to learn. Like they're not like or maybe they're not, because we've seen this now with Baker and now Brock. I don't know, but like I'm pretty sure they're really hard to learn. So Brock Purdy, I mean, it's like if he played 4 quarters of this game and it was a close game, he would have thrown for like 350, but he didn't have to do that because they dismantled Tampa Bay. You saw every time that they scored, they'd show Tom, and Tom was sitting there like, I'm just getting too old for this. Like he just didn't look like he wanted to be there anymore. He just didn't. Every time they score, I'm like, they're going to show Tom, and they did. And I'm just like, he just looks so sad. But yeah, Brock is awesome. He's playing really, really good. But I think that the real test comes now. They have, finally an in-division game against Seattle in Seattle, which is a really hostile environment. And Seattle needs this game in the worst way. So it's going to be a really, really good test for him. I think this is his first real test coming up.
I'll be at the spot. I'm going to be at the game this Thursday too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Me and I'm taking my son to the Seattle game so we can watch the 49ers beat them. So yeah.
Okay. I will say this. I thought Brock Purdy would have had a crazier stat line by how he was playing. But his stat line was 16 of 21, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's just really efficient football. And I think that's what San Francisco needs right now with no Jimmy G. Also, possibly no Deebo Samuel for 3 weeks or so. You're gonna need your other playmakers to step up. So I think that they're gonna need the most out of Brock Purdy down the stretch. But I will also say that defense is the stuff of nightmares. It has been humming for I don't know how many weeks now. And just when I think I'm like, oh, they're gonna have an off game, something's gonna they're not. I don't even know how to explain it. Like to me, this is just my hot take. To me, this is championship caliber defense. Like, It would not shock me to see the 49ers go all the way to the Super Bowl. That's how good this defense is. And at this point, I mean, I hate using the term game manager, but at this point, you just need a game manager, somebody that, don't throw any picks, don't turn the ball over, don't fumble. It's get us there. That's all this team really needs. So this 49ers fans have to be really pleased with what they're seeing here. It's great to see, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so last couple things on our list are the power rankings and rapid fire. I want to make a suggestion for these power rankings. If the Titans were anywhere near your power rankings, please take them out until further notice. They just, I don't even know where they are currently.
Yeah.
But they've been on my frauds list, as you know, for a couple of weeks, and I don't think need to be in anybody's power rankings. Is there any changes that you had, Nick, from your power rankings that you felt like, hey, we need to add or move someone down?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Philly obviously stays in that top slot. For me, I think I had San Francisco last week at 2, and I'm staying with it. And then I'm going to switch. I had the Bills, I think, at 3. I'm going to switch Cincinnati with the Bills just because they look so much better just offensively right now. And then I got the Bills at 4, Dallas at 5, Kansas City very close at 6. They just didn't play that well against Denver.
Nope, 3 picks from Patrick Mahomes too.
Yeah, yep, that wasn't good. They, if you're a Chiefs fan and you turn the game off after the first half, you would have thought it was a blowout. But yeah, and then I got Minnesota still sticking at 7, Miami at 8, and then the Chargers at 9, and then I'm slotting Detroit in at 10.
Oh, okay, spicy. I like it. Yeah. I like it. You even got Chris. Chris is like, oh, okay.
It's power rankings, right? As Stephen A says, it's fluid, right? It's fluid, right?
Yeah, it changes weekly.
It's week to week. If Detroit played any of the teams behind them, I would think that they'd beat them right now. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to take it. Well, I'll let you have it this week. All right. Let's do this rapid fire. Let's do these. And we've got quite a few games with several people on bye week this week, so they're back now. Oh, Lord. Let's start with the games. All right. 49ers Seahawks. I think I heard Chris say that he thought the 49ers were going to beat the Seahawks. Are you in the same boat, Nick? What do you have?
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the 49ers as well, but as I said, this is a really tough game for Brock. His first real test, so I think he's up for it.
Yeah, give me 49ers, but I think it's going to be ugly by a field goal. That is the game there. All right. Saturday slate of games. Start with Colts Vikings. Lord. I'm going to start this one off because this is my team. I'm just going to pick the Vikings because for whatever reason, I just feel like it's not going to be pretty. Don't ask me why. I can't see it happening. I said, this is a really long explanation, so my apologies, but I said last week that Matt Ryan should no longer see the field. That's definitely an about face for me because I'm Matt Ryan apologist for a lot of the season, but that Cowboys game ruined me, and I no longer can justify Matt Ryan being our quarterback. So give me the Vikings. Nick, who you got?
No doubt, Minnesota. I think they're embarrassed a little bit. They've been kind of they were on such a high after beating the Bills, and then they got blown out by Dallas. They kind of got they got blown out, in my opinion, by Detroit, and I think that here, and they hardly really beat the Jets. So they've had 3 really tough games after that, and they're 1-2, and I think that they're going to steamroll Indy. Sorry, they need this one.
Don't say sorry to me. Chris doesn't even care. He's like, great, more losses. That's better draft pick.
True.
So
yeah.
That's where he's at. I already know Chris's pick, so I didn't even bother asking him. All right. Ravens and Browns, and it's Ravens at Browns. Nick, who you got?
Yeah, Cleveland's actually favored because obviously there's no Lamar. I don't know if there's Tyler Huntley playing.
He's got a concussion too.
Yeah.
They said it's a possibility, but Anthony Brown may be the starter.
I think if Anthony Brown starts, I'm gonna still take Baltimore. I think that Cleveland I don't really trust anything that they do right now. Especially with, I think if Brissett played, I would honestly take Cleveland, but I just don't trust Deshaun at all. I don't. I think he's still getting back into the swing of things, and he's not there yet. So just because they have a really good defense, and Roquan Smith has really transformed that defense ever since he got there, I think that Baltimore, another one of those really low-scoring games, but they know how to pull these games out.
Yep, give me Baltimore as well. I don't trust Deshaun Watson to play clean football at all, and he's looked very much like a player who hasn't played in 2 years. So
yeah,
that's that. All right, Dolphins, Bills. Nick, I would assume you're taking your Bills here, right?
Yeah, I mean, Miami just going. We're going to have like 6 to 7 inches of snow. I mean, they're not ready for this.
Oh, it's a snow game. Oh,
snow
yeah, give me the
game.
Bills by 1,000. Bills by 1,000.
I got the Bills like 16-10, but like it's gonna be one of those cold, winter games, and Miami does not play well in that.
Yeah, no, give me the Bills in the snow. I appreciate the snow games there.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a couple more. So this is Sunday. These are several 1:00 games. Let's go a little quicker. Let's go Eagles, Bears. Who do you got?
Philly, no doubt.
Yeah, give me Philly. I would be shocked. Now this might be the upset of the season that the Bears were able to beat Philly. If you thought Cowboys Texans was wild, like I might have to toss my remote if I see the Bears upset the Eagles. Yeah. All right, Lions, Jets. Who you got in this one, Nick?
Detroit, for sure.
Oh, you taking Detroit? Okay. It depends on if Mike White plays. I know he's got an injury.
Yep.
I'm actually going to take the Jets just for the simple fact that they are at home. I don't have any other better reasoning than that. All right, Steelers, Panthers. Who you got for this one?
Yeah. Just for the simple fact that Carolina's still kind of in the hunt for the division, I'm going to take them because they have more to play for, and they're at home. So I like what I saw from Darnold last week.
Yeah. Chris is like living for all these like wild matchups.
I need them for these picks. I need them picks.
Yeah.
All right. I am actually going to take Carolina at home. They shockingly played really well against the Seahawks last week, and I think maybe they continued that magic. So give me the Panthers at home. All right, Chiefs, Texans. Ooh, I think all of us are probably taking the Chiefs here.
Yeah, I think they were kind of embarrassed that they played so poorly against Denver, so I think that they're going to really lay it on Houston. And Houston probably they did everything they could that was their entire season last week to try to win that game. So they're not going to do anything here.
Well, also keep in mind Patrick Mahomes does have a losing record against the AFC South. For whatever it's worth, hey, just I didn't say it made sense, but and he did not play great football last week. 3 picks, it's not great. So I would not be shocked here, but yeah, give me the Chiefs over the Texans. Falcons, Saints. I feel like this is another one where the Falcons need to just win this game so they can keep themselves in potential playoff contention. But Nick, who do you got?
Desmond Ridder, first start on the road. It's gonna be really tough for him. I think that it's similar to Brock Purdy. It's kind of a test because you're in it's kind of a big stage in the Superdome. So I'm gonna go with the Saints at home here, just because I trust Andy Dalton, the seasoned veteran, and that team. They're not great, but they have won some games this year where I didn't really expect them to. So I'm gonna take them here.
Yeah, I feel like this Falcons Saints is always they like split the games for whatever reason. But I'll take Saints at home. I think Ridder it will probably play nicely. But yeah, I would still take Saints here. All right, Cowboys Jaguars, which we just talked about. Nick, who you got in this one?
Right. So as I said, the Jags, I'm hoping they go 3-1 and win the division, but the one would be here against Dallas. So even though it's a tough road trip for Dallas to make, they're just a better team. So I think better teams win football games at this point in the season.
I'm actually going to take the Jaguars in an upset. I think that, yeah, Chris, I'm going to take the Jaguars in an upset. I saw Chris's face like, what? No, I'm actually going to take the Jaguars in an upset. I think that Dallas has been playing very shaky the last couple of weeks, and I would be curious to see how Trevor Lawrence plays in this game. They're also at home. It's very tough to win in that environment in Duval. So, all right, let's go Cardinals Broncos. Who do you have in this one?
Yeah, this is, oh my gosh, what a quarterback matchup. If Russ doesn't play because of concussion, this is a crazy. I'm gonna take Denver. I think Arizona's kind of demoralized from what just happened to their quarterback, and Denver kind of doesn't really care about what is going on. So they're kind of also playing for the culture because I do expect them to have a better season next year. I don't know why I do. So if they keep getting embarrassed, then it's just horrible. So they're gonna have to somehow get on the right track by the end of the year in some way, shape, or form. So I guess I'll take Denver home field.
I don't like using this phrase, but I feel like this is applicable here. This is definitely a mid-off in this game. I'm gonna take the Broncos at home. If Russell Wilson plays, we'll see what happens there with the concussion. So, all right, Patriots versus Raiders. This is a very interesting matchup here. Yeah, Nick, who do you have in this one?
Yeah, I mean, the Pats need these games because they're in a really, really tough, fight now with the Chargers, who I think they've really found their groove. And me and John said that the Chargers are going to beat out the Patriots. So in order for that to happen, I need the Raiders to win this one.
This is a very interesting game. I honestly am not even sure. I'm actually kind of torn about this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Part of me is going to say take the Raiders at home. Raiders at home is where I'm going. All right, let's go Titans Chargers. Titans are traveling to LA. So Nick, who you got?
Yep, and I'm going to take the Chargers because I think that the Titans start their little downfall here. So I'm going to take LA. Continue to roll.
Oh boy. I'm also going to take the Chargers here. I think that you're going to continue tumbling. I would say Energy and Ryan Kelton has been doing his best to kind of till the bottom of this roster after the firing of John Robinson, but I don't feel like anything that is going to be monumental is going to happen now. So, yeah, I think this is an intriguing matchup for the Titans, but give me Chargers at home. All right, Bengals versus Buccaneers, and it's Bengals traveling to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've taken enough upsets in this week, and they happen. So I'm gonna go with the Bucs. I have a feeling about this one. I have a feeling like John had a feeling last week. So.
All right, I'm actually going to take the Bengals in this one. I think they're playing much better solid football than the Buccaneers. So give me them. Joe Burrow's been playing pretty well. All right, Giants Commanders. Chris has said a lot about the Commanders. I'd be curious about your thoughts here too. But all right, Giants Commanders. Nick, let's start with you. Who do you got?
Yeah, Sunday night, in the nation's capital. I like this game a lot because they just played each other and it was a tie. And I thought in that game they kind of both played not to lose. So I'd be interested to see what happens here. I think that the Commanders with Taylor Heineke, I think he's a better late, nighttime quarterback. He kind of rises to the occasion, whereas Daniel Jones kind of shrinks. So I'm gonna go with Washington here. I think that they're just kind of overall the better team at this point in the season.
Chris, what are your thoughts here on this one?
One hand up. Who are we? The Commanders.
Oh, no.
There you go.
Nah, I like the Commanders. Well, I mean, for my bet, I like the Commanders in this game. And I mean, I hate having to pick against the Giants because I did think the Giants could make the playoffs this year. But the Giants have been riddled with injuries. And like Nick was saying, like whatever it is, Taylor Heineke, when the lights are bright, he rises to the occasion. Like he tries to put on a show when the lights are bright. And they still got Scary Terry, man. And even without a quarterback, Scary Terry could go out there and do whatever he needs to do and help his team win the game. So, I like the Commanders in this game.
All right. I'm also going to say the Commanders at home. I feel like they're playing solid football for as best as you would hope out of the Commanders. I think the Giants started out well, but I'm still unsure about Daniel Jones, and that's where I kind of have paused there. So give me Commanders at home. All right, last one. So Rams versus Packers. All right. This is the Rams traveling to Green Bay.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the rejuvenated Baker Mayfield against Aaron Rodgers. This is a really weird game to pick because last year it would be like an NFC Championship, rematch or whatever, and it's an interesting game to pick. It really is because Baker. Yeah, he does. Baker has that that rejuvenated confidence now, and the Packers really have nothing to really play for, so they shouldn't really be winning games at this point in the season. So for that reason, I'm gonna go with Baker again. I think he's got two wins in a row.
Something about this feels like a game that Baker Mayfield would throw like 3 picks in. It just feels like that. Like, I don't know why I feel that way, but I feel like it would be one of those where it's like, you should absolutely beat the Packers. They're decimated. They don't have a whole lot going on, but I feel like it would be like we come back down to reality about Baker Mayfield this week, and he throws like 3 picks. I'm gonna take the Packers in this one. Chris, is that where you were going?
No, I was actually going to say Green Bay has nothing to play for, besides a top tier pick, just like us. And also I need the Rams to continue to win games because if they win games, because right now I think the Rams are sitting at like either 3 or 4, and 3rd or 4th overall pick. And if they win this next game and we lose to the Vikings, then that puts us up, drops them down, and because their pick goes to the Lions anyway, so it's not like they're going to get any use out of that pick. So come on, Rams, do what you need to do.
And it's not like the Rams have anything. It's not like the Rams have anything to play for either. It's just that Baker does. I think that for his overall
Baker does.
He has a lot of he's got a lot for play for.
It's a contract year. It's a contract year for Baker.
Yeah. He's got this second chance, and I think he's going to take advantage. That's just my opinion.
That's fair. Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So that was the end of our rapid fire pick'em. So I think this is actually a really good episode. We had some good spirited debates here. This is what happens when we also include Chris in it. He's going to continually push his agenda for the Colts to go into the top 5 at all costs. Doesn't matter how it happens. But all right. So I appreciate anyone who is listening and watching. Of course, we appreciate you just for tuning in and listening to our chaos. Of course, don't forget to comment and like and subscribe. Tell a friend, the usual, the casual. Of course, before I forget, because I wanted to make sure that I mentioned this, we do have a live show on Thursdays called The Bounce. It's all things NBA. That is with James and Kev. They are phenomenal as well. Also part of Stadium Rant family. Please go check them out as well. They do some really good work there. And I think that, hey, I think that James and John keep up all the puns because I've listened to some of their show as well, and I think they're both on some like wavelength. They're like, "Yep, I'm just going to insert all these puns into the show." So. All right. Of course, as always, you can find all of our content at stadiumrant.com/NFL. You can also find us on Spotify. You can search, I think it's NFL. There it is, NFL on Stadium Rant podcast. That's a whole mouthful there, so I had to get that right. But of course, as always, there's no flags for roughness, but the comments are necessary here. And of course, we'll see you next week. And hopefully, it won't be as wild and crazy as this week because I don't think my heart could take all that. But I'm here for the chaos because it provides some good content for us. So maybe I do want the chaos here. All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you hanging in. Thanks, Nick. And thank you everyone else for watching. All right. We'll see ya.
See y'all. All right.